Nestled between San Francisco to the north and Silicon Valley to the south sits San Carlos, better known as the City of Good Living. But behind the tree-lined streets and vibrant downtown lies a story of visionaries, discovery, and a community that's always thrived while adapting to the ever-changing tides of history. Long before it became a city, the land that is now San Carlos was home to the Lamchin, a subgroup of the Ohlone people. They lived along the creeks and hillsides, hunting deer, gathering acorns, berries, and roots.
The first inhabitants were the Lamchin. They were part of the Ohlone group. They were here for a long time. They lived off the land. They used to grind acorns. They fished in the bay.
By the late 1700s, Spanish explorers laid claim to the region, transforming the landscape with missions, ranches, and far-reaching land grants. They eventually christened this land San Carlos.
It could have been named after King Carlos of Spain. It could have been named after the Feast of St. Charles, which is November 1st, which supposedly is the day that San Carlos was first seen. Or it could be named after the ship that sailed into San Francisco Bay called the San Carlos. So we're not really sure.
San Carlos sits on what was originally part of a land grant held by the Arguello family. After California became part of the United States in 1850, much of the family's holdings were sold off, subdivided, or lost through legal disputes.
Doña Arguello was here after her husband died. She lived up in the city with him. He had bought a huge portion of land that went from the Belmont-San Mateo line down to the Menlo Park-Palo Alto line. They had their home here in San Carlos. It was a little adobe up on Magnolia and Cedar. She was starting to lose some of her land to the 49ers when they came. They were squatting on her land, so she hired Samuel Mezies, and he was able to get them off, and in gratitude, she gave him a lot of the land, and then he started selling it. He sold some initially to Timothy Guy Phelps, who was one of our first Maine people in town. He built a huge house over on the east side. He was also a senator. He knew Abraham Lincoln personally.
William Hull was another key player to shape San Carlos in these early years, turning vast acres of land into orchards and farmland, giving the area its first sense of community. Then the train's arrival in 1864 brought new momentum to San Carlos with John Britton, and later his son Nathaniel emerging as leading figures in the town's growth and prominence.
Since the minute the train station opened, like John Britton, a perfect example. He had these hardware stores. He was considered a wealthy merchant in city San Francisco. What does he do? He comes down and he moves to San Carlos. He takes the train back and forth every day. He buys up a lot of the land. He helps build the community.
When he died, he gave the land to his 3 children. Nathaniel Britton was the main son that did almost everything. He still has 2 houses that he built here in town, his manor house on Pine and his party house on Dale. He actually was instrumental in helping us get the train station built in 1888.
Our depot here is historical because it's built with the same materials that built the buildings at Stanford. The Southern Pacific Railroad really developed the peninsula. That was the reason they set up all of these depots. They wanted to settle all these towns, and the railroad was a perfect way to do it. And they were selling lots in San Carlos in the 20s. Buy one, get one free. Can you imagine that?
A lot of these people had businesses someplace else, and then they came and they lived here, and then they opened businesses here. Or they had businesses in San Francisco. They said, oh, you know what? I think what I'm going to do is go down to San Carlos. I live here. Maybe I'll open another business in San Carlos. That train opened up San Carlos to the world.
But just a few decades later, another form of transportation would become an important priority to San Carlos and the nation. During World War I, a veteran named J. Paulding Edwards established the San Carlos Flying Field. This airstrip, known as the California Aviation Corps Field, was among the earliest aviation facilities in the region.
Its first role was to train pilots, so then they would go to the actual, in those days it was the Army Air Corps, and they would go and learn military tactics to train pilots to go to World War I.
As World War I came to a close, San Carlos was no longer just a collection of estates and farms. A true community identity was beginning to take shape, thanks in part to real estate developer Fred Drake. In 1917, Drake purchased large tracts of land, and his careful marketing promoted San Carlos as an idyllic, family-oriented haven for San Francisco's working professionals.
As people settled here through the 20s and 30s, there was a real spirit of wanting to create a town that was really functional, of people who wanted to raise their kids in a nice, friendly town. Of course, Fred Drake, who was the father of San Carlos, he was able to come in and buy some land that had been foreclosed by a bank, and he was able to really start to market this town. Let's form a commission, let's fix the roads, let's have a lighting district.
He was an idea man, and he was very charismatic, and he was one of those guys that comes in, he's got ideas, and he draws people to him and gets people excited to do something. There's a reason why he gets a lot of credit for San Carlos. He made things happen.
He knew what to do. He put in water supplies that went to the lots, and he paved the streets, and he put in sewers, and then pretty soon the lots started selling and the population started to grow. After things got going, he coined the phrase, the city of good living.
And I think he did a good job. He really deserves that title of father of San Carlos.
As the population grew, residents pushed for incorporation, which came in 1925, officially creating the city of San Carlos.
In the 20s, the city was growing. Fred Drake and a group of the community members got together. They decided they really felt it was important that the town incorporate.
People in San Carlos, they didn't want to be part of Belmont, which was a more established community. They didn't want to be Redwood City because Redwood City was a county seat. So they really had a strong sense of, no, we are San Carlos and we want to be our own city.
So they had a vote, and on July 8th, 1925, San Carlos became an incorporated city.
In its early years, safety and education became top priorities. The first police department started small, just a handful of officers patrolling quiet streets. Then, where there once was only a volunteer fire brigade, a formal fire department was created.
In 1925, after the city incorporated, they started a police department. Also, because most of the houses were wooden, they needed a fire department. They had a volunteer fire department.
As the city grew, the infrastructure had to grow with it. We needed a regular fire department, not a volunteer anymore. In 1925, Pop Wheeler was the police chief. For a short time, he was also the fire chief until they hired Chief Lyle. They didn't have any radio communication at that point in time. So they had a red light that would be hanging at San Carlos Avenue and El Camino. And when the dispatcher tripped the light, it turned red, and then Pop would know that there was a call. So he had to go to a call box to find out where the call was. And so you can imagine how long it took to get a police officer when you needed one at that point in time.
Schools quickly followed, from the modest one-room buildings to the beginnings of what would become the San Carlos School District.
After it incorporated and it started to grow a little bit, I believe at around the same time, they were able to build their first school. The schools were becoming kind of an anchor point for people. They really valued their families, their children. This is a good place to raise their kids. Kids could run around. And there was a lot of community spirit.
The 1920s and 30s tested San Carlos just as they had tested the nation. During Prohibition, San Carlos developed a quiet but colorful reputation as a stopover for bootleggers and speakeasies, with hidden stills and secret gathering spots tucked into its then rural landscape. A few stories of urban legends still survive.
There's a really beautiful two-story house on Elm Street that had a basement. And the story is that Al Capone actually visited there during the 20s. And I know that there was an old restaurant that doubled as a brothel.
The only really great story I ever heard was about the Ohio building. Some development group got together and they bought it and hauled it down the bay and they stuck it on the mudflats. And it was kind of a dance hall bar. So that was the only real, kind of, yes, shady side of San Carlos.
As the Roaring '20s faded into memory, far greater challenges loomed. And by the early 1940s, the world was at war once again.
The impact was that everything was rationed. Gasoline, groceries. You had to get tokens to buy groceries. You had to have a sticker in the windshield to buy gasoline.
There were scrap metal drives, rationing, so that was all organized internally.
World War II brought a unique chapter to San Carlos. The city hosted a military dog training center, preparing canines for guard duty, mine detection, and other critical wartime roles.
In 1942, San Carlos was picked to do war dog training. And up on the hill where the Devonshire Country Club was, they took a whole bunch of land, set up tents, had dogs from all over the United States come here, and they trained them.
And it was very, very unique. As a matter of fact, one of the few places in the entire country the dogs were actually being trained for the war effort.
Like much of America, San Carlos flourished in the post-war boom.
It was booming times. Electronics companies started coming to San Carlos, Lenkerd, Ampex. And when I was growing up, everybody worked for Lenkerd. They were huge. They were the ones who started operating operator telephones so you could call the East Coast and not have to pay a fortune.
After World War II, they moved their businesses from the East Coast completely, and they're building large warehouses and storage and R&D and everything, and they're hiring. So what do? They go to the city and they say, we got to get more housing. The electronics boom started in San Carlos. It changed everything for this city and for the Bay Area.
During the war, after the war, all of these little electronic industries came in. There was a lot of activity here, and they were big employers for the time, hundreds of people.
The electronics companies really were a solid source of employment, and so people didn't have to really commute to work for these companies here. That's when the boom started, because all of these people coming back from the military, people wanting to settle here, start families.
And many of them were returning soldiers. They wanted to get married, they wanted to raise families. So a common theme was get out of the city, come to San Carlos. And I think as people came here, part of what they saw in San Carlos was they still saw that kind of community spirit, and they liked it. They saw good schools, the parks were being developed at the same time because there were just kids all over the place.
Before the war, we had about 3,000 residents. By the end of the 1950s, we had over 20,000. New neighborhoods were popping up all over the place. It was amazing.
The infrastructure wasn't really there. There was no sewers, there were no lights, there were no stop signs. So part of the big challenge was, yes, you'd have home building, but the developers didn't take it to the next level. And that was a real problem for the city.
The task was to rebuild the streets, rebuild the storm drain system, boring stuff that people don't think about. But if you don't do it, your city will fail. And those are the sorts of things that we went to work on immediately. We beautified the sidewalks, we put up nice street lamps. We waived parking requirements for restaurants if they would serve lunch and dinner both. And then it took off. I mean, it's much more than we ever expected.
San Carlos evolved from a quiet post-war community into a dynamic city that perfectly balanced progress and good old-fashioned life. One tradition that survived the decades is the Chicken's Ball, a whimsical variety show and fundraiser first staged in 1940.
The 1990 Chicken's Ball on Center Track.
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Let's have some fun, you son of a gun. Be my little honey bun.
That was a primary fundraiser for the San Carlos schools. They used to sell the tickets at the Carlos Theater, and the tickets would go on sale on a Saturday morning, and the line would go around the block. The show would be sold out in one day. It continued to grow in popularity and in scope. The stages got bigger, they became more elaborate.
50s and 60s, It was a fun place to be an adult. You could go to the Carlos Club. You could go to theaters. There were bars, lots of bars. There were lots of churches and a lot of social activity through churches.
We still had a bowling alley at that time, and there were bowling leagues. We had two big movie theaters in town, the Carlos and the Laurel.
One of the premier hotspots of San Carlos in the 60s was the Circle Star Theater. Its unique circular stage, designed to rotate so every seat had a perfect view, hosted world-class performers for decades. It put San Carlos on the cultural map, drawing audiences from all over Northern California.
Circle Star got going, I think, in the 60s and drew a lot of people here, big names. Sammy Davis Jr., they saw Frank Sinatra, they saw lots of different groups coming here during that time period. And I think that was not only a local draw for people, but also regionally, people came in.
I was very fortunate to be able to work there at the Circle Star Theater and witness some of the greatest performers of that age. Tom Jones, Frank Sinatra, Engelbert Humperdinck, and the list went on and on and on. I would just sit in one of the spaces on the rotating stage for security so nobody came running up and tackled Tom Jones.
Education has always been a priority of San Carlos. From the town's earliest days to today's network of award-winning schools, the community has continually invested in learning as its greatest resource.
They're dedicated to teaching, they're committed to teaching, they're innovative, they're creative, but what they really are is committed to community. And they embody what San Carlos is as a community in the district and in their classrooms.
By the 1960s, San Carlos was in the middle of a population explosion, and children poured into the city's classrooms faster than new ones could be built. To keep pace, the city launched an ambitious effort to expand.
In the 1960s, populations, families with children, was growing throughout the peninsula. And the high schools, the existing high schools, were overcrowded.
There were neighborhoods popping up all over San Carlos, up in the hills, down in the flats. And because of that, the Sequoia Union High School District built a high school up on the hill.
And then in the late 70s, early 80s, population starts to drop. And the district is facing a lot of economic pressure to close one of the high schools in the hills. San Carlos lost the lottery on that one.
And so the school district decided that they, because they needed the money, needed to sell the land. They begged the city council to allow them to sell for $6 million.
When I got here and talked to people, they were still bitter. They were still bitter that they lost their high school and didn't really understand why that had happened. It was really an economic decision.
With a burgeoning population and shift from aging adults to younger families with children, there was a need to expand community programs. One such notable program was the San Carlos Children's Theater, which was launched in 1990 to educate youth in all aspects of theater production, nurture creative expression, teamwork, and an appreciation for the arts. Since its inception, they have produced more than 214 shows, trained more than 16,000 aspiring young actors, and entertained over 26,000 Bay Area families.
A really clear sign of that shift from an aging demographic to a more family-centered city was the birth of the San Carlos Children's Theater.
A lot of students participated. They had a great time doing the shows. Parents were doing costumes and makeup, and it became a real community of parents who were involved in the children's theater.
We put on Aladdin. It was our first big show, musical show. And we sold 200 tickets a night for 4 nights in a row. That was it. We were off to the races with a shift towards families with kids and how San Carlos marketed themselves. I think it was phenomenal.
As San Carlos settled into its reputation as an ideal place to raise a family, the rise of Silicon Valley was underway. Fate had positioned the city perfectly between the old and the new, a charming, quiet community in the heart of the tech boom.
We always kind of considered San Carlos to be the Bethlehem of Silicon Valley. A lot of the people coming into San Carlos were techies, engineers. Itel McCullough started here, Len Kirk. Dalmo Victor, Ampex, and Tesla. They all started here really from grassroots.
San Carlos is really well positioned because it sits right between San Jose and San Francisco. It really provided homes for people who were working at Oracle or Sun Microsystems.
San Carlos went from being primarily blue collar to more highly educated adults very fast. I mean, it was so fast. What else happens? Housing prices go up and the city starts offering more services.
The expansion of the Silicon Valley into San Carlos was mostly a very good change. The good features were that people came in, they bought the houses, they improved them, they added on, they beautified the appearances, the neighborhoods got even better, the city had more money, we rebuilt every park in the city.
The school district was another big draw for those people because we had excellent schools here. And so they wanted to come because they knew they wanted their kids to go to that type of a school.
Moving through the 1990s and into the millennium, this younger demographic transformed San Carlos into a vibrant, upscale community with a bustling restaurant scene and renovated downtown.
At the beginning of the millennium, San Carlos was a lot more vibrant than it had been in earlier years. Stores stay open later, restaurants started showing up on Laurel Street. It just seemed like there were a lot more people that were out and about.
Laurel Street is the living room of San Carlos, where people go to gather and meet and dine and shop and meet friends for coffee and take their kids downtown. And the pedestrianized block has just, our community has just fallen in love with the pedestrianized block.
We have one main street, it's Laurel Street, and that's a gathering point. That's really where you see people that you know. And when you have long-term residents, you have long-term friendships. You have long-term relationships with business owners and with other people in town, and it creates a community that is engaged and is welcoming and wants people to stay.
On the heels of the COVID-19 pandemic, San Carlos has recovered and is stronger than ever. San Carlos today is a modern suburb with a population of over 30,000 residents. The city offers a diverse and welcoming community with numerous community-based organizations and hundreds of volunteers. San Carlos is proud of its family-friendly neighborhoods, lively downtown, top-rated schools, theater and arts programs, breathtaking parks, and recreational opportunities for residents of all ages.
A key indicator for a healthy, vibrant city is to look at how many kids are in your community. And in San Carlos, about 25% of our population are kids under 18. And if you go to any one of our parks after school or on the weekends, they're just buzzing with activity with soccer, baseball, softball. We have a very active pickleball community now. We have a beautiful trail system in San Carlos that we're also continuing to add to. We opened a beautiful new trail this year in Devonshire Canyon. And so really, looking at not only our developed parks, but also our open space and really opening those up to the community as well.
San Carlos is the city of good living. It's a small town in the middle of a big urban area, sandwiched between two big cities.
To see where it was when we incorporated in 1925 to where we are today, it truly was a total evolution and change. Everything that the city has done in terms of the industrial area and what they're doing down on Laurel Street, I think they're doing a great job.
Throughout this centennial year, the people of San Carlos, from city leaders to lifelong residents, have united to celebrate a century of good living.
We spent about a year planning for our centennial. We created a special Centennial Advisory Committee. We decided that for the centennial, we didn't want just one birthday event. We wanted a whole year of celebrations. And so 2025, we started out with the Week of the Family and our San Carlin of the Year Gala, senior prom at the Adult Community Center. Then we went into the Hometown Days Festival in May, which is a whole weekend-long celebration, and that was really our big birthday party. We had our very special parade with Barry Bonds as our special guest. We had a drone show that evening where the whole community gathered at Central Middle School to watch the drone show, which featured just so many incredible images from the history of San Carlos, and it was truly the highlight of Hometown Days. We did a Centennial Grant program this year, and perhaps the most visible recipient of our grant was Art Bias. 3 of their artists painted a mural along the 700 block of Laurel Street, a 6,000 square foot mural where you can literally walk down memory lane of the last 100 years of San Carlos. I do want to thank our staff who have worked very hard this year to put together all of the really special events that we've had here. My city council colleagues have been terrific in working together this year to accomplish so much. We've had so many hundreds of volunteers who have given their time to all of the special events this year. And this year we're working on so many forward-looking initiatives for the next 100 years that's something to celebrate as well.
For 100 years, San Carlos has been a city built on connection between people and progress, past and possibility. From the families who built its first neighborhoods to the dreamers and doers who continue to redefine what a small city can be, San Carlos remains, in every sense, the city of good living.
I would say that the city of San Carlos is the city of good living. One thing I love is that when I walk downtown, I still see so many people that I know. I see them at Starbucks, I see them at the farmer's market. It's just a wonderful place to live.
It's really an acknowledgement of how far we've come. We're celebrating not only 100 years, but we're celebrating how we've evolved as a city while maintaining our really what is a small town character.
This year is a centennial. We have this incredible opportunity to look back. It still has that small, original village feel to it.
A century of change, growth, and community spirit, San Carlos continues to write its story, one generation at a time.